Welcome! Today, we're diving into the On-Farm Climate Action Fund, an innovative program designed to help farmers embrace sustainable practices. The On-Farm Climate Action Fund provides financial support and resources to farmers across the country, enabling them to adopt practices that reduce greenhouse gas emissions and improve soil health. This initiative focuses on three key areas: cover cropping, nitrogen management, and rotational grazing. The fund also offers educational resources and technical support, helping farmers stay informed about the latest sustainable practices and technologies. Today, we're visiting Alicia and Danny King. They have been implementing rotational grazing practices on their current operation in Antigonish, Nova Scotia with the support of the On-Farm Climate Action Fund. Join us while we discuss how rotational grazing has changed their operation.
So here at Six Maples Farm, we're a family operation. We've got beef cattle, sheep, chicken, and eggs. And Danny and I farm with our 4 children here on the farm that I grew up on. So we're 7th generation on the farm, and our children are the 8th generation. And who knows what their future is going to hold, but we're hoping to make the farm an operation that they want to come back to. So.
Then we've been here since 2015. Yep. Both of us worked off farm until 2022, and then I came home full time, but it's taken us those 10 years to actually make it work. So it's been a lot of work, a lot of expansion to make it happen. Rotational grazing for us is the ability to move cattle or sheep from pasture and pasture, and allowing the pastures in which they've came off to regenerate, to grow, to come back.
Giving them that rest period.
Yes, yeah. And the biggest part for us is substantially increasing the amount of animals per acre. So with our rotational grazing, we've been able to improve on that. We've improved on our flock health within our sheep. Around worms, we've improved with the amount of animals we've been able to have per acre. Our cow and calf health and condition has continued to increase. So rotational grazing for us is a means in which we can farm more animals and less acres. Yeah. It's probably not the scientific, perfect reason for it or definition, but for us it's all about how can we get more out of what we already have.
Right. It's because it's costly to expand and to buy more land, so we're just trying to do more with the land that we currently have, and we've been growing our beef herd, and in doing that we've also had to utilize community pasture and some other pasture outside of our own home farm. So the rotational grazing has allowed us to keep more cattle home when we need to as well. So.
Before the OFCAF program, we had one main pasture. Mm-hmm. And then what rotational grazing we tried to do, the cattle had to come back to that same pasture to water. So we weren't able to truly give those pastures a break because the cattle always had to come back to that pasture to get water. Mm-hmm. So we tried to rotational graze, we tried to put them on other pieces, but we still couldn't have the number of animals that we wanted because they were always coming back and taking down that new fresh grass before it had a chance to come back to full height.
We would try too, even just making alleyways so that they weren't necessarily feeding off the whole pasture, but we'd make alleyways back to water sources, because water sources they've always been the struggle that we had to perfect the rotational grazing piece. So I wouldn't say we've perfected it yet, but we're getting there. And
then power. So our pastures are not close to power. So I was like, well, how are we going to put up electric fence when we have no power? So we're trying to put up alleyways and we're trying to use batteries and it was
hauling extension
cords, and it's a lot of work. So it wasn't working as well as, not even remotely close as well as we wanted to. So this has allowed us to substantially increase how we can rotational graze. So it was a lot of manual putting up permanent fences, and the sheer cost of putting up permanent fences and the time it takes to put them up, maintain them. So we have a lot of fences here that have gone up because we didn't have any other means to fence animals out of areas. And all those fences take a lot of maintenance to upkeep. So there's a lot of fences that we're looking at now and going, okay, do they really need to be there? Because there's a lot of work.
I think some of the goals that we have, I kind of alluded to that too, is making the farm that we're currently farming a profitable enterprise for somebody in the future, be it our own children or somebody else's child that wants to get into agriculture. And in order to do that, we need to protect what we have. We're not making any more, there's no more land being made available. And if anything else, we're being encroached by urban. So the rural life that we have, we need to be able to bring it up. They're not making it again. So one of the ways too that we've been wanting to do that is without the soil has to be healthy for everything else to be healthy. And one of the ways that we can do that is through the rotational grazing that we've set up. As Danny made mention of before, worms is a really, intestinal parasites, I guess I should call it, is a big issue with sheep flocks especially. It is in the cattle world as well, but not quite to the same degree. And doing that rotational grazing is hopefully helping keep them sheep away from grazing on pastures too close where the worms are still alive and well. So
for me, I always come back to economics. We pay a mortgage on our property, so if we can get a better return or a higher return for the investment we've made into our property, the better off we are. So they go hand in hand. Like the OFCAF is setting up all these standards for environment, but there's so many aspects of it that are going to improve our economic output. So if we can double the amount of animals we have on the home farm, but yet our economic investment remains the same, well, then it's a huge win from the farm, it's a huge win economically. And hey, while we're doing it, we get to help the environment. So for me, that's a big one, where is how can we make this economically viable, but yet still be able to do all the pros and positives of helping the environment. So, and ultimately, money talks.
And the spin-off to that too, we do sell product at the local farmers market, and being able to supply that product locally is huge, and being able to tell people our story, what it is that we do and how we do it, that goes so far. And not only that, somebody asked me just last week about being at the farmers market, and I said, well, the banker wants me to sell you this product. I want to sell that product too, but I also want to educate you as to why that product is where it is, or why it is, or how it is, whatever the item is. So yeah, I think the spin-off to the community is huge as well.
And then rotational grazing for me is allowing to improve our biodiversity. You can go through a walk through our pastures where the birds, where the wildlife, as the cows move out of one location, wildlife moves in where they've moved out. There's places where they're commingling. But having that healthy environment is the biodiversity on the farm is huge, and it's a lot of fun.
And it also helps too. Every day, we may not move cattle every day, but the more often that we're around the cattle, the calmer they also become too. So they look forward to that move as much as anybody else does. So.
The OFCAF program, we were able to get funding for our solar watering system. So that is a system which allows us to put a pump into either wells or into the West River, and then water our cattle depending on which paddock they're in. So that helped build that system. It also helped with our solar fencing system, which included our solar fencer, all the wire, all the fence posts, to allow us to break down large hayfields into smaller paddocks. So after we take off first cut, we can then go through and break them down into smaller paddocks. We can then move our solar watering system along the river and water all the cattle. It's also going to allow us to change over hayfields in which have never had cattle on them before. So we're going to be able to put it.
That's a win-win, because we're going to be able to, that manure that's being dropped is going to, it's going to already be on the field rather than having to haul it and mechanically spread it. So
that's just that alone is going to increase our pasture capacity here by over 25%. Like, it's huge numbers. So that's some cool things that we wouldn't be able to do in the shorter period that we've did it. Right. It would have been a 5-year project instead. Okay, hang on, we can pull this off in 1 year.
Yeah.
Yeah. The biggest one would be the solar watering system.
Yeah.
Everything else we wanted to do and we're trying to do in some manner,
right.
It just wasn't at the level we were at. The solar watering system, that is totally new and something that we wouldn't have been able to do without it.
Right, right. And with the solar watering system also, we're able to take water out of places rather than sending the cattle into those places to get water. So we're saving riverbanks, we're saving wetlands, we're, you know, all of those different pieces by just having us enter to put the pump in and then take it back. So.
The biggest transition would just be learning the solar watering system.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what batteries we needed, how long does it last, what hiccups is there, you know, how big of a watering tank do we need for the cows? Does it need to be full before the cows go in? Like, how far away can they be? You know, are the calves going to actually go and stay at the watering system when all the cows go back out to the pasture? Mm-hmm. So those kind of things we didn't really know, and it was more of a trial by fire.
Yeah.
You know, put it in, see if it works. Okay, pay attention. The fencing systems, the paddocks, setting up the paddocks, we already were doing it in some manner. The big one was learning all the ins and outs on how to best manage the solar watering system.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think part of that too is conversations can always improve that, but what works on our farm may not work on your farm either, and our cattle may be different than your cattle. So their overall process and their overall idea on how they want to do it, I'm thinking more about the calves, whether the calves are going to stay when everybody else leaves. That's something that, you know, that farmer to farmer conversation is always a good space for that. So. I would say the biggest thing is just the ability to improve our capacity of what we're keeping and what cattle are staying home, and the ability to grow that herd. We know how much winter space we have for cattle, so we know what our maximum capacities are there, but we weren't able to necessarily do all that based on what we had for field space. So this ability to convert some of our hay fields now, like Danny was saying, and taking the first crop off mechanically, and then letting the cattle come back in on the next rotations, rather than taking a second or third cut harvest off that, it's much more, it's certainly an economical savings and an environmental savings as well. So
3 years ago we had 12 cow-calf pairs
that stayed home.
That stayed home. This year there's 21.
Yeah.
And we still don't have another 12 acres into the rotation yet. So we've been able to keep our pasture rental costs the same and substantially increase our cow herd.
Yeah. Well, the fact that the cattle are home, the fact that we've increased the number of cattle that we have staying home for the summer is a huge, that was a huge goal. And at the end of the day, we kept our cost numbers down too. So We subscribe to a lot of different newsletters and e-newses and all of that.
Jonathan Wart.
We're all we're also very active in the community of agriculture, provincially and locally. So, you know, we're always looking for a dollar wherever we can find that dollar. And if it means that we have to put a little bit of effort into the grant writing piece of it, then we will. But yes, OFCAF was one of those well promoted ones.
Right off the get-go for us, the rotational grazing has taken the cattle away from one of the brooks that we have. So in the past, the brook was open to the cattle for the entire grazing season. So the river banks were grazed down. There's seeing a lot of damage from the cattle being there. Since the rotational grazing in the solar watering system, now they're only on that riverbank for the week that they're in that paddock. So the natural vegetation is now growing back up. The riverbank is becoming more stable. The week they're there, you can't hardly even see any effect of them being there. Mm-hmm. So it's made a difference there, and we're not doing anything different to the riverbank, and it's naturally coming back. The solar watering system for the West River, we don't have to introduce the cattle to the West River. It's an amazing river. It's a very healthy river. We don't want to have anything to do with changing that. The amount of water we take out is so small, it's negligible. So those are the things that are just been, you know, really good for the environment.
I think the biodiversity one is a huge one. And what we've seen so many, there's been so many different birds and all kinds of different critters that we've seen. I don't know if I can necessarily say 100% that goes back to the rotational grazing, but definitely the different practices that we've taken on since starting the rotational grazing too. Yeah. That would certainly be one of them.
As for the science, that's so far over my head. If they say it works great, but there's so many other aspects that are positive to us.
Mm-hmm. And the quality of grass that we're seeing coming back.
Yeah. So if it's an environmental, you know, bonus, great. Just the economical bonuses, you know, alone is enough to make us say, hey, we want to do this. And for me, a lot of people say, well, we need to set up these programs. We need to make it, you know, to help the environment, we need to do this. Well, we need to make programs in a manner in which there's economic benefits for the people who are doing it. Mm-hmm. Now, we take pride, and there's a lot of emotional benefits to it as well. And go out and listen to the birds and seeing all the biodiversity is fun. But if there's not an economical benefit to it, we wouldn't be able to pull it off. We wouldn't be able to do it. And why is anybody else going to want to do it if all there is just a make you feel good moment? So the economic side is it's been set up in a manner in which we've seen, okay, here's an economic benefit, and hey, by the way, you're helping the environment.